When I voted for Obamacare, health care reform, one of the things that motivated me was the fact that health insurance companies would no longer be able to discriminate against Americans with pre-existing conditions. I've had a situation in my family, a child who had a serious physical problem, who could not have qualified but for group health insurance that was available to me as a member of Congress. If I had gone on the open market to buy a policy, I'm not sure I could have bought one for my family to cover my child. So when you say you want to abolish Obamacare, do you want to abolish that part of Obamacare which says you cannot discriminate against people for pre-existing conditions when it comes to health insurance if those people are victims of asthma, diabetes, cancer treatment, mental illness? Do you want to abolish Obamacare and that protection?
I thank the senator from Illinois for that question, and let me answer it in two different ways. Let me talk generally about what the senator talked about his health insurance and my health insurance as a member of the Senate, and then let me talk about pre-existing conditions separately. The first point I will make is that the senator from Illinois is passionate and has been quite eloquent describing what he perceives to be the benefits from Obamacare. And yet I think it speaks volumes that the senator from Illinois and I and every other member of Congress has been exempted by President Obama from the plain text of the statute. The statute provided, and it was inserted quite deliberately, that if we're going to impose rules on the American people, we should be subject to the same rules. We should be put in the exchanges like millions of other Americans. You just talked about the wonderful exchange. The text of Obamacare provides that you and I should be in those exchanges. And it also provides that, just like the other people in the exchange, that our employers can't subsidize it once we get in that exchange. Now, once it passed into law, the Democratic caucus met with President Obama. I obviously was not in that meeting, but I read the public reports of what occurred there. I read the press accounts, and the press accounts all indicated that the majority leader, the Democratic members of the Senate, asked President Obama, please get us out from under this. We don't want to be in the exchanges. Now, I see my friend from Illinois is shaking his head. Look, I was not in the room. You can read the press reports all say that was what occurred. But regardless, that's what happened. So that message was heard by the President because shortly thereafter the administration issued a ruling that exempted members of Congress and exempted our staff. And so I'm curious if the senator from Illinois is such a fan of the exchanges, is such a fan of the health care that has been provided to Judy. Would the senator from Illinois then support Senator Vitter's amendment to provide that every member of Congress, every one of our staffs, every political appointee in the Obama administration, and frankly, I'd like to see every federal employee all put under the exchanges so that if we're going to make the rules for the American people, that we be subject to those same rules, those same plans, so that when we go on television and say the exchanges are really, really good, we're not talking about something someone else is experiencing. We're talking about our own health care.
Without jeopardizing his control of the floor, I would like to respond and ask a question.
I'm happy to yield for a question without yielding the floor.
And the point I'd like to make is the senator is just plain wrong. What he's just stated is just plain wrong. Here is the state of the situation. The health insurance that you enjoy, and the senator from Alabama, and I enjoy, as well as the senator from Virginia, is the Federal Employees Health Benefit Program. It covers 8 million federal employees and their families, including members of Congress and our staff. For the premiums that we pay for the health insurance we choose, the federal government, as our employer, pays 72% of the premiums. This is not an unusual situation. 150 million Americans, half our population, have exactly the same arrangement. Employer-sponsored, employer contributions to the health care of their employees. What the President did was to say, number one, you, Senator Cruz, myself, and others will now have to buy our health insurance through the insurance exchanges that we created in Obamacare. And with it, we will get the employer contribution as we do now, as you enjoy now personally, and I enjoy, for that purchase of health insurance. My wife and I will be choosing a policy from the health insurance marketplace in the state of Illinois. We will have 8 different insurance companies and 165 choices, and that's our insurance. What you quarrel with is the employer's contribution to health insurance. And if that is now your position, the position of Senator Vitter and the Republican Party, that it is a federal subsidy that should be stopped, you are affecting the health insurance not just to members of Congress and their staff, but 150 million Americans. You better think twice about this. If you want to stop employer contribution to health insurance, that is the headline for tomorrow morning. I do not support that. My question is, do you?
I thank the senator from Illinois for his certainly genuine political advice and counsel. And I would note that the experience Democratic senators found of under Obamacare suddenly facing the prospect of losing their health insurance, of being forced into the exchanges, health insurance that had been employer provided, being forced into the exchanges with no employer subsidy. It is a disconcerting experience. It is an experience nobody likes. It is an experience that's lousy. There's a reason why Democratic senators were so upset. There's a reason why congressional staff were so upset. What my friend from Illinois is not focusing on is right now there are Americans all over this country who are experiencing that exact same sentiment because of Obamacare. You know, just a few weeks ago, UPS sent a letter to some 15,000 employees saying we are dropping spousal health insurance because of Obamacare. Now that's 15,000 UPS employees who had insurance for their husbands and wives, and suddenly those husbands and wives are left without health insurance and being told, go on an exchange with no employer subsidy. Now, Senator Durbin just made a passionate case why that's a terrible thing to tell people. I agree. Listen, my preferred outcome is not to subject members of Congress, congressional staff, political appointees of the administration and federal employees to the exchanges and Obamacare. My preference is to subject nobody to that. But the reason why Senator Grassley inserted that amendment is because we've got a problem of a ruling class in Washington in both parties. This is a bipartisan affliction that believes that the rules that govern Americans, working Americans, don't govern us. And so if we're going to set up a system, if Obamacare is going to force Americans all over this country to lose their employer-provided health insurance, to be forced onto the exchange with no subsidies, then the men and women who serve in this body should feel that pain exactly the same. So when we go on television and say, this is great, we should know of which we speak because we got skin in the game and we're not being treated better. And I think under no circumstance should Congress, members of Congress, be treated better than hardworking Americans. And that's what President Obama did, and he did so by all reports at the request of Democratic senators in this body.
Senator, will yield for one last question. I know the senator from Alabama.
Senator yield for a question.
I'd like to ask one last question, and then you
for
can have an exchange with the senator from Alabama.
Well, Senator yield.
I am happy to, I'm going to yield to the senator from Alabama for a question. I'm happy to return to the senator from Illinois if he would like to remain, but I want to be fair because the senator from Alabama has been waiting for some time. So I'm happy to yield for a question without yielding the floor.
Well,